Welcome to the Happy Wealthy Show. My name is Neo Flora. Just call me Neo. How do you create a wealthy lifestyle? Well, it's much more than money. So let's redefine wealth as a matrix of impact, fulfillment, worthiness, success, relationships, and revenue. We'll explore the definable and digestible steps to get you there, and how we can live the highest quality of life along the way. I know that we can be happy and wealthy, and I'm here to show you how. Welcome to the Happy Wealthy Show. I'm excited about today's guest because he's become a personal friend, somebody I've got to meet on an occasion, but know in a mastermind. Phil is somebody who has a tremendous vibe to him. He is not only a mentor and coach to youth, he's an educator, he's a father, he's somebody who moves people from being tired to inspired. It's really always wonderful to be around your energy, Phil. Phil, thank you for being on the show today.
Pleasure and privilege to see you and connect with you anytime. I'm with you. Seriously, you always bring out the best in me, new ideas. You're playful and what's going on in front of you. And I always leave energized and inspired. So anytime with you is time well spent, brother. So thanks for having me.
Glad that you're here, brother. And so let's tell the audience who Phil Januszewski is. I'm not going to say his name wrong. Say it for me, Phil.
Januszewski, you got it, brother.
Januszewski, yes. Tell me a little bit and tell the audience a little bit about who are you? Like if we had to learn about you riding in an elevator for 90 seconds, right?
Friends, my name's Phil Januszewski. By day, I'm a chemistry and physics teacher in the public school setting. I've been since 2005. And by night, I get to go across the country speaking to, first of all, youth with my best bud, Matt. We're part of M&P Presentations, and we love to cultivate confidence and promote a positive mindset inside youth. And then from there, I've also been called in the last few years to speak to adults personally through my company called Positive Growth Lounge. And I love to pour into adults to help them take better control of their personal lives through structure so they can show up to life more inspired and less tired, as Neil, you already kind of mentioned. And I love to do that because when we're inspired, we're able to give more to the world. And I think that's what most of us get joy from, is by giving to others, maybe sometimes without us even realizing it. So I love people getting there. That's what I'm all about, brother.
Yeah, and usually it's towards the end of the show that we kind of let people know what you do, how to find you, how to get in contact with you. But it's really important, I think, and I'd be doing Phil a disservice if we didn't mention it up front, because what he does is such an integral part of who you actually are. Right? There is no divisibility. You don't get a different Phil in any circumstances. It's the same Phil. And I know when I was under M&P Under 3, which is an amazing show. They've had some amazing high-level guests, a variety of people. But one universal thing is true of people who appear on that show, is it is the most fun that they've had on any show. And I've said this to Phil before, but it's like that little kid who's running down the hill and he's giggling the whole way down, right? Just having so much fun. And you are infectious in that way. Like, where does that come from, Phil? Because I know a lot of people talk about the palpable nature of who you are.
Oh, well, thank you for that. We love doing the MP and Under 3, and we giggle and have just as much fun as our guests do, which is why we do it. It's a fun passion project. But I think that I've always naturally enjoyed making other people happy. I think that's just something that naturally lights me up as one of my character strengths. And I took a character strength test, actually, or survey a while ago. And I think my second character strength after love was humor. And I do think that when people are laughing, giggling, enjoying, and we're together, I feel more connected to people. So when Matt thought of the idea of the 3-minute show, and we'll do ridiculous questions, but also sincere, and shove it into 3 minutes, I just felt like, gosh, this sounds like a lot of laughing. I'm all in, and to connect with people. So we love doing it because, like, Neil, after we did that, it's kind of like this thing we've shared together. And now I'll never forget it. Even if we don't communicate tons all the time, when we do, I feel like we always have that. And I'm grateful for that. When I meet people, when we laugh together, when we connect, it's a bond that really sticks with me strongly.
You're reminding me of Jim Carrey, is somebody that I want to have on my show, and I've already put that out into the universe. I'm a big fan of his because he is a funny guy, but he's so incredibly deep. He's so incredibly thoughtful in a really unique way that almost seems counterintuitive. Well, one of the things he said that I think was really beautiful that I'm reminded of when I think of you is that basically he was providing people a place to find relief, right? Find relief
Mm,
from life and everyday things. And I think the subtext there was provide some level of healing, right? In that humor.
mm.
So you being that kind of guy, how have you seen that sort of theme run in your own life, right? Where you or somebody else, or how did that influence how you grow up and see the world, right? Is using humor to help heal and provide relief.
Yeah, I think growing up, humor was a huge part of our home. I also think humor is a great way to mask affection in a home when you're not completely confident in just saying, like, I love you, I'm proud of you, I see you, I value you. And when you're uncomfortable and insecure with that type of communication, I think humor is the next best way to show that affection. So in my family, when someone loves you and values you and sees you, they love to poke at you and dig at you and take your little quirks and highlight them and laugh together about it. And I think in a way that was really good for me because I grew up understanding adult humor. I understand it when people had an edge to their comment. I was resilient. I didn't take it to heart. I knew most of the time people mean well and that they say things with a grain of salt, often to get a reaction. And when people give you that attention, a lot of times I figured that was more of a compliment than an attack. So growing up in that environment allowed me to feel like humor was natural, it was welcome, and it was a great way to connect with people, especially when people weren't comfortable. Neil, let's be honest, you are transparent, and after 20 seconds will probably tell someone, if you mean it, I love you and I value
Yes.
you. But a lot of people aren't where you are at, Neil, and I think that that was my way of saying that to people without making them maybe uncomfortable, where now that I'm 41, I'm okay telling people that, and I can do that and also hopefully make them laugh and feel comfortable as well. But I do think that that was a great way to mask love without being able to be rejected, and it was like a safe way to do that. So this type of communication, when I speak to my audiences, I always have humor. I always have lighthearted stuff in there to ease the tension, and also for anyone who's just insecure with super heavy topics or just isn't confident enough to address it. I think humor helps bridge that gap.
Yes, I bridge the gap, and you said a word that is personally near and dear to me. You talked about resilience, right? And
Mm.
yeah, I love that idea of humor providing resilience because it really does. I mean, even laughing just releases tremendous like biochemicals. If you're walking into another room where other people are laughing, you naturally join in. You join into that laughter, and I've seen people that have honestly healed tremendous things in their lives by creating laughter over and over, right? And so I think that's wonderful. So, Phil, let's pivot a little bit from this idea of resilience into how you use sort of humor and your brand and how you educate people. If you're not looking at the video right now, if you're listening to the audio version, what you don't see is a very handsome man who's got sort of a quasi mohawk, right? He's heavily tatted. Um, he will dress in multiple different ways, right? Depending on how he feels, and he's okay with that. But what I see in you really at your core, Phil, is that you are entertaining. You are an entertainer, right? You've learned to kind of use that in your brand. And a lot of people are not okay doing anything outside of who they are. If they always wear ties, they can't come into work in a t-shirt, right? They can't express themselves. I think one of the things you give us is as the entertainer is permission to express ourselves. Does any of that reverberate for you? And how have you come to be so easy to express yourself when so many of us have so much trouble showing up?
It's a really great question. And I think I grew up with this odd sense of confidence that I probably had no right to have, but I had it. And I just was always very comfortable with myself. And the things that I wasn't particularly comfortable with, I think I would purposely try to work on. So, as far as like, I'm going to wear this because I like it. And again, I grew up in a home where my parents were pretty supportive. As long as it wasn't hurting anyone or hurting you, and it wasn't disrespectful to anyone, it was like, all right, go, what's the big deal? Do it then. And I think I just grew up with that mindset. So for me, I feel like if I can help people feel that way also, that's really valuable. So in my classroom, I want my students to show up as who they are. And I tell them that in day one. Like, hey, I have no idea what your high school experience has been like. I said, honestly, I care about you, but I don't care how your experience has been. This is a completely new place. I just want you to know that I want you to show up as exactly the person you are. You don't have to walk on eggshells with me. I want you to be you. And then I said that I also know that not all of you are going to want to be chemists and physicists when you grow up. And I don't expect you to love this class. However, I cannot tolerate you dreading this class. So, if you ever find yourself just dreading walking into my classroom, I said, I want you to come and talk to me. We have to figure out a way so that you can at least be comfortable and tolerate it. But I never want you to ever dread saying, oh, I got to go to E102. This is the worst class ever. I said, because if that's the case, then we've got a problem and it's unacceptable to me and you. And I think when I let people know that right off the bat, I think that eases the tension a little bit. I have no expectations of who they need to be. I have expectations of how they need to act occasionally, for respect in that, but in safety. But I think that really helps right off the bat. And I think them seeing me that someday I'll be in a nice vest, suit, and a tie. And the next day on Friday, I'll be in a school t-shirt and you'll see my full sleeves. I think that also allows them to know that I have layers of me and I'm a human. And there's, just different interests in my life. And I think hopefully that opens them up. And a lot of them feel comfortable asking me questions about my personal life and who I am. And I think that's all really important as a role model to youth to show that I am confident. I have different layers to me. I have different interests. I love teaching, but I also have other passions outside of here. And hopefully they do too. So I don't know if that really answered completely your question, but as far as a professional and a teacher, I think it's nice for me to be able to be that way, to demonstrate to them that you don't have to just be one way. You can have many different sides to you, and that's okay. And in a lot of ways, I think that's great. I think it's exciting. I think variety is definitely the spice of life. So I'm always looking for new experiences and new people. And I think that's demonstrated in how I carry myself.
You said a lot there, and I would encourage you, if you're listening, to rewind this part and sort of take it what Phil just said as sort of a treatise for how we can create the number one need in our life besides love. That's safety, right? We don't think about that,
Mm.
but it's such an integral part. Kids who don't have a sense of safety grow up very anxious, very traumatized. They have more propensity to go to violence and addiction and all these things. And what Phil is really talking about is like, let me create an environment for my students where they know that they are accepted. And the other number one thing that we need is somebody just to kind of give us permission to believe in ourselves, right? And just
Mm.
allowing that sort of permission slip to say, look, it's okay to be you. I'm comfortable with you being you. I want all of you who are listening right now to think about the last time that somebody, either through words or their way of being, said, I'm very comfortable with letting you be you. That's not a small thing that we're talking about here that you're creating in your
Mm.
students. And I also want to say that we're behind the veil now. We have access to all the information. So when we spend time trying to project an image, we're perpetuating this long-standing misnomer that we are just one dimension, or that somebody who's a great teacher also doesn't struggle with self-image or whatever else is going on, right? That they don't have other aspects of their lives. As a parent, and I know you're a father as well, one of the things I
Mhm.
really, really go after with my kids is like saying, hey, look, I'm a human being. Yes, I get it. I'm your dad and I seem like the world, but sometimes I get down and sometimes I have desires. And sometimes I'm eating a dessert, damn it. And I don't want you to have a bite because it's mine, right? It's okay to say that, right? It's like, I don't need to share
Yes.
everything with you. And kids own what they're shown. Kids own what they're shown, not what you
Mm.
tell them. And you're showing them something really different. So, how does that kind of attitude filter into being a father? And I know you are very passionate about being a father. So, you have a couple kids, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a son and a daughter, 12 and 9. It's an amazing experience, the best thing that's ever happened to me, and also a challenging thing because I care so much. But I do like to be transparent with my children. First of all, like I show them my real self, and sometimes that's not the prettiest. Sometimes I am angry or disheveled, but I also show them my unapologetically fun side. I love loud music and I love dancing, and I'm not afraid to show them my full self. And even though they cringe, I know deep down that that's giving them permission for them to be whatever it is they are. And maybe they aren't loud, crazy dancers. That's okay. But whatever it is they are, I want them to know that they're quirky individual self is beautiful and makes them exactly who they are. And who they are is more than enough for me. It'll always be enough. And then one of the things I love to say, and now it's like an inside joke, but I used to always tell them that I'm proud of them when I was sincerely. But now I always say, but more importantly, are you proud of yourself?
Ooh.
And they always like roll their eyes, but I think it's so important. I told them I read some parenting book and I said, "Listen, I love that you want to make me proud and it makes me proud." I said, "But when you grow up, you're going to need to make decisions that make you proud and not just what will mom and dad think." I said, "You will eventually have to make choices in life that I might not completely agree with, but I want you to always stay true to what you know is best for you that will make you proud of yourself. And we will always walk through that." And I said, "And I'll always love you, even when I disagree with you. And I'm sure there will be times, but I really feel like I'm hammering that home a lot now to the point where they say it to me. They're like, "Dad, I'm proud of you, but are you proud of yourself?" And so they do listen, but hopefully I'm modeling that through my actions and through me being myself and me, just starting a speaking business, even though I'm a teacher. And, I'm like, I'm going to go for it. What's the worst that could happen? No one calls back? Like, whatever. Like, I'll figure it out. And I'm hoping that that's leading by example.
Our ability to have our kids understand their own selves through our modeling our own behavior is so huge. And if if I have permission to be editorial a little bit about what you just said, I love the idea, and I also am in that vein of like I tell my kids all the time, like I am not here to build my authority in you. I'm here to build your inner authority. Because someday you won't
Mm,
have me. Someday I'll be dead and gone. Someday, whatever. I was like, dude, you got to be able to like answer to you, even like to the point at which I've told them to stop saying yes, dad. Say, tell me you got it. You're on it. You understand. Whatever it is, I'll do better. But I don't want the yes, dad, because I'm not here to have you pander to me, right? Which I think is an
mm,
unconscious thing a lot of us do. I've done it as well. I'm not a perfect parent, right? I'm not a perfect parent. I've
sure.
done it as well with my kids, but it's building that inner authority in our kids, right? Allowing them to say that. And the other portion of what Phil just said is really beautiful, and I hope you guys heard that. Is like, you know, I love questions. Questions lead uh, questions. Quality of your life is the quality of your questions, and more questions lead to better awareness, and more awareness it leads to messy action. But it's whenever my kids ask me something now, I'm like, Dad, do you think this is good? I always say to them, and they don't even get it yet. I say, well, what do you think? They're like, well,
Mhm.
I really like it. I was like, well, I like it too.
And that it doesn't matter what I think if you're proud of it too. That's a good start. And then it's a double win if we both like it. Great. Great. But I love that. to empower children. And then also to, a lot of times I'll say, instead of like, oh, I like that looks great. I'll say, hey, you worked really hard on that. You put in a lot of effort, and that effort paid off. Take a look at what you have.
Mm.
Trying to highlight the fact that their value isn't from always the end product, but the fact that they were doing it and working towards it. I'm trying to maybe manipulate them a little bit, right? But I'm trying to get them to see life that way, that it is about the effort you put in, because the more you put in, usually the better the outcome is.
Yeah. Yeah, you're getting them to fall in love with the process. I mean, that's all we really
Mm,
have. That's all we really have is just the process. And I really do think, I really do believe 100% that that's what most people are looking for. Most people think, I want to accomplish X. But you know what, Phil? Most of us, what we really want, we just want to know that we have the spiritual, emotional, mental capacity to get from this lily pad that we're on to the next one, right? That's
yeah.
that's all we really want. That's all of us really want, right? And so
Oh my
talk to
gosh.
us talk to us a little bit about like the next versions of what you're constructing, because like I know that you've done these things with Matt, right? And you have this sort of youth speaking business, but what empowered you, or what gave you the notion to say, hey, I want to talk to adults, and more people need to hear what I have to say?
I think that now that I have children, now that I'm 41, and now that I've had a career in education for almost 20 years, I think for the first time in my life, I feel like an adult, and in a good way. I feel confident, and I started looking around and seeing so many great, good humans that are adults that are struggling and just getting by. And I started thinking, why do I love my life so, I get emotional a little bit, but why do I love my life so much? Why am I overwhelmed with gratitude, and why do I still have this drive to always want more and to make more impact? And then I look at so many beautiful, good-hearted humans that are so far from that, and just literally going to work and then going home and putting out fires. And it really called to me, like, how can I help some of those adults just take a little bit more of their life back, to clear the air and see through the fog, so that they can see there is so much more for them, that not just to do and accomplish whatever, but just to, like, to allow them to enjoy life and feel it the way I did and I do. So I started digging into positive psychology, and I've always loved personal development, Neo. I'm like you. I love meeting people, different ideas, questions, anything. But in 2020, when I started teaching, and the screen and a lot of student screens were off, and I felt like alone, and I'm like, what am I going to do to help myself get through this? Because I felt like I had no value to the world. And that's when I really dug into positive psychology and started figuring out what are the things that could allow me to thrive instead of just survive in this moment. And through that, I felt like, man, the life I've lived, I'm so grateful for, and there's so much more to do. How can I help give a piece of that to adults? And that's what called me. And I talked to my co speaker, Matt. We speak to youth. And I said, would you ever be cool with me speaking on my own, as my own company, specifically to adults, just about trying to show up to life more thrive and less survive? And he was so supportive. He's like, you have to do it. Look at the world. They need it. We need it. And that's what I've been doing for the last, since 2020. It's been on my heart. And for the last year and a half, I've been really focused on building it to make more impact. So that's where I'm at, man. I am building a launching pad to try to make a huge shift in the world for adults to not just survive, but really sincerely start to thrive. Because once we get there and we're thriving, we can be so much happier because we're able to give more to others. And when we help others and give our true quirky talents, we really start to see just how incredibly beautiful every day is. But for so many of our good hearted human friends, they're not there yet because they're just trying to tread water. If we can help them get a little bit above and into a dog paddle, they can start to see a little further ahead, and they can really start to change their life.
So this idea of getting out of survival and into thriving is a very personal concept for me as well. I mean, I have my own chronic illness recovery. I have seen people change their health tremendously beyond what medically seems reasonable. I've seen people create massive opportunities. And I really believe, and I'm going to get really deep and personal for a moment, it's like if we can decrease this violence within, we can decrease the violence without, right? It's this
Mm.
idea. And when we're all in survival, we can't think, we can't feel. When you are a healed person, you hear differently, you see differently. And if we see the world as we are, not as it is, then this thing that Phil is talking about, guys, it is a serious mission. I'm glad to have a fellow brother and light worker because we need millions of people doing this work. This is not a one person job. Neo Filora
No.
cannot effectuate enough people. What I want is to have a community of people, thousands, millions of people that are doing this work, and we're doing it in combination. So I know there's somebody listening to this that is hurting right now. They are hurting. And what I tell people is like your mission, like let's not just be casual about this. Everybody has a Schindler's List. They just don't know it. People
Mm.
who are just waiting for you to show up, to save their life, to change something. We've all had that experience of people saying a few things to us and it's lasted a lifetime. It fundamentally pivots us, right? But you are somebody who's so good at thriving. Like a lot of people don't get it. Like, how do they do it, Phil? How do they get out of the survival that they're in?
Yeah, the way I love to look at it is first you have to look first within, upstream. What are the things that actually bring you joy and energize you? So, what are the natural character strengths? I like to call them your ers. So, Neo, you and I are fathers, we're creators, we're speakers, we're a lot of ers. I want to encourage people who feel like, man, I'm just kind of living or just making it, to think of a couple of their ers that really elevate them and energize them. So for me, when I'm speaking to others, when I'm a speaker, it energizes me, it fills me up. Find a couple of those ers. And the first baby step is I want you to find a way to schedule that, even if it's 5 minutes, each day into your daily schedule and routine. Could be in the morning, could be at lunch, could be afternoon. I want you to find ways to hit on one or two of your ers each day. I want you to build off of that positive energy that is backed by science, by the way, right? When you build in the good stuff, you're creating a positive bank, mental bank. And when we start slowly creating a better positive mental outlook, we, as you said, Neil, so eloquently, you see the world differently. It's a different world when you're more healed from within. So if we slowly start with that and build in a little bit of a structure, you might find that you're going to get more obsessed with structure. And this could lead to you really creating an intentional day every day where you build in, like I like to say, the good stuff, your ers every day. And once you get to that point where you start seeing yourself going to bed at night less tired and like, man, I didn't forget to work out today. I didn't forget to talk to my family. I unplugged a little bit and read a book. Everybody's got their own different things, by the way, right? So those are some things for me. I got to create, I video edited, I got to cook for my family. I'm a baker, I'm a cooker. Those are my ers. When you start building that in more and more and you start realizing that you actually do have the time, you can declutter the things that are habits but not necessary and refill them, replenish those spots with the things that fill you up. All of a sudden, you find you get more and more energy. Your outlook on life changes. And then the best part happens. All of a sudden, you hit a tipping point where you have the mental capacity and space to say, oh my gosh, there's my friend Neil. He's been working really hard. I'm going to tell him that I see how hard he's working and I appreciate it. All of a sudden, Neil's light up and I'm lit up a little bit too. Then all of a sudden, you start having the mental capacity because you're building it and saying, you know what, my coworker absolutely loves desserts and I make a wicked key lime pie. I'm going to surprise them on Friday. Just make a pie for them. We're just going to have a little slice and then give out the rest because I know my friend's also on a diet, right? All of a sudden, my little random ers and gifts, I have the open mentality to actually start giving those away. And the more I do that, the more I feel like, gosh, this is a beautiful world. I'm connected. I belong. I matter to people. I make a difference and I'm making their lives better. And in return, it's making my life better. And when we start getting that way, all of a sudden the energy we didn't have, we do have. All of a sudden, the time we never had for things, strangely enough, we have plenty of time for. So again, it starts with a little tiny shift of building in a couple ers and then building off of that. But I truly think it can change your entire life.
And that part about like having that cosmic shift where everything that seemed like a boulder that you were the Sisyphus and rolling it uphill, right? Kind of feeling. All of a sudden it all shifts and it starts rolling downhill. And the biggest challenge for people is they don't stick with it long enough. Because I'm just not going to
Right.
lie to you guys who's listening. This is hard work. It's not
Yeah.
easy to keep rolling the ball uphill. But if you do it religiously, if you do enough different things, you don't have to fix everything in your life. There will come a point where lots of things will get easier. And this is how I work with people, even on time. I tell them, like, you don't spend time, you create it. That's you can't you
Mm.
will never you will never win out like spending something that is a losing battle that will always be in a deficit. And when you're always measuring yourself by that, you're always playing from behind. But how do you actually create moments and minutes and moments in your life in a way? How do you start creating that small differences? And they do add up to a point at which he said it more beautifully in a lot of ways than I've ever said it. Phil did. It's like you just get this ability to go, you know what? I have bandwidth for other things. Too many of us are married to so many other things in our lives. Um, I did want to you popped it for a second. I did want to. You talked about being a baker, right? And your ers. You
Mm.
talked about being a baker, right? So this multi hyphenated dude that's sitting on this in this studio with me today has done a couple of unique things. And so I am aware that there might be a Netflix show out there somewhere with you on it. Is that true?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I got on a show on Netflix called Nailed It. It's an amateur baking show, and basically you get an 8-hour professionally made cake, and you have to make it in 2 hours. And it's a comedy show, Neil. You're supposed to do awful, and boy, did I deliver! I did awful, my friend. But I'm very lucky that I got to do that. And honestly, I think I made it onto that show because I am a person that's thriving. I have a lot of good energy. I'm also, as you said, I'm kind of unique looking because most people don't think of a chem and physics teacher heavily tattooed or super silly and excited about life. I don't know why that's our judgment and generalization, but that is, it seems to be, though Breaking Bad changed my image quite a bit as well, that show, Neil. So that's a whole different story. But anyways, I got on the show and I had an absolute blast. One of the coolest, most unique experiences I've ever had. Honestly, it's not a resume builder in any way, but it's an incredible story and a fun experience that I still run into people and they're like, dude, I literally just randomly saw you pop up on Netflix on Nailed It like years later. And I'm like, yeah, I'm on an episode. It's weird, but amazing. So grateful for that experience. And I always put it out there. If Nailed It ever wanted me back for a rematch, I am immediately in.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it just it may not be a resume builder, but it's a life skill builder. And what it really says is like, I'm not afraid to create new
Mm.
opportunities in our life. And I mean, I think if you hear anything in Phil's story, besides the positivity and what he's doing, I want you to really hear over and over and over again the ability to create opportunities in our life. And that's this feeling of stuckness. If I had top 5 things that people come to me and tell me that they're experiencing in life is being feeling stuck. And I like this idea of creative disruption, right? I have painted my nails
Mm.
black and put on tat sleeve and went to EDM party. I've gone and dressed in tuxedos, right? I will do whatever. Recently I went to Florida. I had them paint my toenails white, right? I'm sitting on the beach and people are like, dude, I love your toes. Like, it just something that takes me creatively out of and shifts me out of it every day. And it's great to have discipline and behaviors but we have to realize that fundamentally we are repetition replicating machines, and that works in our favor. But I would say often it really works in our disfavor because we stay in the familiar and call it fulfilling, and that's really not what it is at all. So what Phil is demonstrating through his life is like, look, I'm okay doing something crazy, because I know that even if I don't become the next Netflix star, what it will give me is something much, much more than that, which, I totally see you having your own reality series, right? Uh, where you prank people with chemistry and physics, and then teach them something on the back end.
I would love I would love to have a show where we work with celebrities to pay it forward, where we think of ridiculous ways to pay it forward to good humans and film it just to promote positivity. I think that would be a beautiful thing to do. And I'm surprised the network hasn't done something like that yet, since I think positivity is a good seller. There's a lot of wholesome shows now out there, like Whose Voice Is It, and singing and silly. And I like to see that. So I'll put that out there too. I'd be happy to help run that show if anyone wants to do a pay it forward show with like famous people that want to just get silly and weird, but also good.
I love that idea. Well, Phil, as we bring things to a wrap, before we give you some time to let people know like how they should absolutely connect with you and why they should have Phil on their stage to help them move from tired to inspired, right? I'm going to ask you a few questions here, so I'm going to flip the chair a little bit. I always do a few questions at the end, but I'm going to do a Phil special here, right?
All right.
So which would you rather burn your mouth on? Scalding hot pizza pocket or clam chowder?
Oh, pizza pocket for sure. Way more worth it.
That was a toss up for me. I didn't know which way you were going to answer that. All right. Question number 2. If you were eating something, you want to spill it on a carpet, would it be a slice of pizza or would it be a PB&J?
And you spill it on the
Yes.
carpet? PB&J, and I hope it would like do the flip and land like face down, get messy.
Yes. If you were going to prank your kids, would it be diving into a pool full of Jello, right? Or would it be a balloon full of paint as they exit the house?
Oh gosh, the swimming in Jello sounds amazing, doesn't it? I'm gonna go with that.
All right, I could keep going with these, Phil. My brain is a mess just like yours. But let's spare the listeners, and I do like to always ask this question: if you could tell 15-year-old Phil something right now, you had 90 seconds to go back and say something to get his attention, stand in front of him and say something to that young man, what would you say?
I would say keep doing exactly what you're doing. Be your own unique, slightly different self that is happy, loves people, and in the end, that consistent kindness, effort, and hard work will continue to pay off in ways you can't even imagine. Just keep it up.
Just keep swimming, my friend. Yeah, I hear you on that. So Phil, let us know, like, how can we keep track of you if we want to work with you or have you come out and speak with us, which I encourage you guys to reach out to Phil. How can they accomplish that?
Thank you so much. Well, my name is slightly unique in America. Januszewski isn't in Poland, but in America. So if you just Google search my name, Phil Januszewski, friends, I'm at every social media account at Phil Januszewski. But sincerely, if you have a group of givers, humans that are working really hard and they're adults and they could just use a couple strategies that are totally doable, but can completely shift their outlook. And most importantly, not only personally, but professionally create positive change, I would love to be able to pour in to your group. So just reach out. I'm always down to meet new people, have a quick conversation. But if it's an organic way I can serve you to help people be more inspired and less tired at work, but just as important and more importantly in their personal lives, it would be my pleasure and privilege to try to support you.
Awesome, brother. Well, I appreciate you being on the show today. Thank you very much. Just want to remind the listeners, as always, that the best part of being wealthy is being happy. Thanks for being here today, Phil.
Thank you so much, Neil. I appreciate it, brother.
Thank you for listening to the Happy Wealthy Show. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review. It helps us reach more people, and through a little bit of your generosity, we can help those impact-driven, heart-centric change makers out there like yourself.